Do you want to do that now?
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay, let's stop tape for a second. Suzanne wants to put a do not disturb sign on the.
We are rolling recording.
Go ahead and do your name and thing.
So can you tell us your name and your relationship to Harwood?
My name is Friege Van Gils. I'm the executive director of Escuela del Sol Montessori in the Harwood Art Center. So as director of the school owns and operates Harwood Art Center. And so the Harwood Art Center is a project of the school. And so I run the school.
Okay. And tell me how you spell your name to make sure we get it right.
Friedje, and then small V-A-N, capital G-I-L-S.
Okay, great.
Dutch.
Okay. Tell me about how Harwood got started.
Well, really how it got started was when the school made the agreement with the Methodist Church to lease this property. They pretty much said we had to take the whole thing.
Okay, wait a second. Maybe we should have you say when Escuela del Sol Montessori made, because I don't know.
Oh, okay,
we
yeah,
may
so-
need to distinguish between this school and Escuela.
Escuela del Sol Montessori started by renting property here, by renting space in the building just behind Harwood. And then we entered a lease purchase agreement with the Methodist Church who owned this property. At that time, they pretty much said we had to deal with both buildings because it is all one address. This building, that is the Harwood Art Center building, was definitely not suitable or licensable, since we were talking about that earlier, for young children. So we decided, through a story I can tell you at some point, to start an art center here.
Okay, tell me the story.
You want me to tell you the story? One of the art teachers we had at our school, named Kelly Stone, was also taking classes at UNM in the Fine Arts Department. She had come here from the Art Institute in Chicago. And through her involvement at UNM, of course, came to find out that lots of, especially students, found it very hard to find affordable studio space. And she also met a graduate student who needed to have his thesis show here or somewhere. So she suggested to me that we rent out some of the space of what was formerly a dormitory to artists for studios, and that we allow the student to have his thesis show here in the dining hall. And that's how it got started. We thought it was a good idea, and it has grown since then.
How do you think the Art Center blends with the mission of Escuela del Sol?
Well, Escuela del Sol is a very strong part of its philosophy is its community outreach program. I sometimes refer to our school as being a public-private school because I think it's very important for children not to be isolated in their education. That part of education is the community process, which involves people of various ages, various backgrounds, and so on. We saw this building and the art center as an opportunity to expand community outreach through a variety of programs, both for children and for adults. Also involving adults in the educational process, not so much that the kids are here, but they know that the artists are here, they do visit periodically. So it's become a real integral part of the whole curriculum, both for preschool and elementary.
And has Escuela del Sol been very involved in the development of all the children's programs that are here?
Escuela del Sol has been, in terms of the Harwood Art Center children's programs, very much, yes. Yeah. We started off, the first one was one of the members of our board of directors really pursued this idea of an after-school arts program for kids in public school. And so she got the first grant from the Community Foundation to start that, which is now called the Harwood After School program on Wednesday afternoons, and it's continued through that since that time.
Tell me about what you know about the Harwood Girls' School.
Well, years ago when we first came into this building to start fixing it up and cleaning it, we came across old photographs, a smashed leaded window that used to be over the front door, slides, and we started looking at them, and it really showed us some of the activities of those very early days. And that's what really piqued my interest in this school, because I knew it had been a girls' school, and that's all I knew. And just we started talking to people about that, about the photos we had found, and started meeting some of the people that were involved, you know. And so just, I thought too, in terms of course, when we first came to this building, in terms of licensing and the use, we knew it was a school because it's zoned for school use. So just meeting some of the people that were working here at the time and their stories.
And tell us about the reunion that you had. Oh, wait a second, let's stop for a second. Just give about 10 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, you almost have to leave one ear off. Okay, we're ready.
As we started meeting people, as we started just being in the building, and people started coming over here for shows and so on, and the school, we just started meeting people.
Sorry.
Actually, I had to clear our throat, sorry.
You had to clear your throat. Okay, so as we started occupying the building more and spending more time here, of course, and as the Art Center started growing, we started meeting people who just would stop by. I remember one woman who stopped by to see if she could have something from here. She said a brick, anything. So we were aware that some people had some strong memories and feelings about this building, as well as the photos and slides that I told you about. So we just decided to have a reunion. We met Henrietta Sidebaka, who I think you will meet later, and because she, I think, lives or works in the neighborhood. And so with her, we decided, and with Richard Goulas, who was the program director at the time, decided to have a reunion. And she had some names and addresses, and we just had an event in the dining hall. She brought lots of old photos and newspaper clippings, and it was just a very interesting, part of it. We wanted to know the history of the place.
What is your sense of what the Harwood Girls' School was like?
I think it was a lot of different things for different people. For the people that were here in the earlier days, in those days people grew up here. Some people grew up here from the time they were in kindergarten and stayed all the way through high school. We saw wedding photos, people got married on the lawn. So I think for some people it was home. For many people it was home. So that gave it a very warm, wonderful bit of memories. I think for some people it was maybe a difficult place to be because it was also sort of built as a boarding school for girls who had problems. And so people sent their girls here from all over New Mexico. I think some of the difficult teenagers in those days came here also. And we've heard some stories along those lines also.
Or, does it sound okay?
Can we ask him to stop it, Suzanne?
I was wondering what your perceptions were about community and how the Harwood Girls' School was a community in and of itself, and how the Arts Center has kind of become that.
Kathleen, go. Yeah, I know when you're asking the question, it's okay. Your hand comes over the frame.
Oh, okay, thanks.
So just be conscious. Okay.
The Harwood Arts Center has become a really integral part of this neighborhood and of the community, which is interesting because I'm sure that very early on in the years when, as I was mentioning, the girls grew up and lived here, as well as just going to school here, it was very much the center of this community. People that live in the neighborhood remember the girls' school. People all over Albuquerque remember the Harwood Girls' School. And I hope that now people all over Albuquerque remember the Harwood Arts Center, which I think it has become a real gathering point again.
What are your goals in terms of renovating the building?
Oh yes, this building is a very major renovation project. And I think all of that fits in very well with the curriculum of Escuela del Sol in terms of community involvement. This is a historic piece of art. It was very interesting when we first found the original architectural plans for this building, as well as for the building next door, which, by the way, it turns out that one of the grandparents of one of our students built that building. So continually we find connections. It's going to be a major renovation project. I don't know if this is the time to make my pitch for the $4 to $10 million that we'll probably need to do that, but we want to renovate it as a historic landmark in the way that it was meant to be and the way it was built originally. We're starting with the window over the door. I mentioned the smashed glass, leaded glass window that I found in the basement. We'd like to restore that. It was a beautiful piece of art. We've seen it from photographs, so we're hoping to restore that again.
Great. When you started the Harwood Arts Center as just renting a bunch of artist studios out, you probably had no idea what it would become. Can you talk about where you've come from and where you see yourselves going?
Yeah, we started off, the first project that the school did at the Art Center was a summer arts camp and renting studios. And yes, frankly, I had no idea that it would become as successful and as wonderful as it has become without losing its original sort of grassroots view. I just hope that it continues to be to develop as a community center, the place where I can see need for fleshing out and improvement. It's just continued classes, maybe more during the daytime. It's already feeling to me like we need to expand, although I don't know where to. But there's so many different kinds of projects. We've talked a lot about a sculpture garden out front, which also will help, I think, renovate the whole neighborhood as well as, and the community at large, as well as this particular piece of property. So through some of those projects and through continued just offerings of classes and workshops, I think we're just going down the right road and just keep going, I think.
Great, thanks.
Suzanne, anything else you think we need to talk about that we haven't covered? Anything more about the history project that we should ask?
Well, are some of the photos and the slides that were found down in the basement going to be in the exhibition?
I think so, right? I mean, I think you've gotten most of those, and
All the photos I've gotten were not from the basement, so I don't even know about the photos that were not in the basement.
was that right?
Yeah.
They were probably, I think they've got, I mean, they were probably originally in the basement, and then they were in the files that Richard had before you, came on. The portion of the Methodist Church that owned this building, and I believe ran the Harwood Girls' School, was called the Global United, the Women's Division of the Global United Methodist Church, which is a group of women who live and work in New York City. I'm not exactly sure how they came up with the idea of starting a girls' school in New Mexico, so far away, but I do know that actually it was the fact that it was the women's division of the church made it possible for Escuela del Sol, as a nonprofit organization, to purchase the property and to start the Harwood Arts Center. Little bit I left out there earlier, because we contacted the women's division and said that your stated mission as an organization is to work with women and children in furthering their development, their education, and so forth. So you really ought to give us this property. Because of course in terms of market value and so forth, we couldn't have come close. And they didn't give us this property, but they were very helpful in terms of the lease purchase and making it possible for the school to purchase this property. And it was with the idea and the commitment in mind that it would be developed as a school and community center, because that is part of their mission. Now when they started the school here, as we talked about a little bit earlier, there were a lot of, there were people from all over New Mexico, Hispanic women, white women from the ranch country down south, and some Native American women. I'm not sure how Native girls got sent here, exactly what their role was. But it really also reflected, and I think you might see that when you interview people, the multicultural dimension of New Mexico, which is an important part of our school. It's through our financial aid program, we emphasize the diversity that's in New Mexico, and I think we see that in the programs here too.
Great.
Okay, we can stop.
Yeah, actually, I would like to, I wanted to acknowledge,
Okay.
and just in closing, I want to acknowledge that in the last several years, the direction Harwood has taken and its success is due largely to the work of Suzanne Sabarge, our program director. She's one of the best decisions I've made in a long time. And so gives me hope for the future. And also Suzanne's community involvement. She's really gotten the Harwood Arts Center involved in Magnifico and the Arts Crawl and just other, really spread it out into the community. And so that's a very, very great and important thing for us.
Great. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, I think we can stop. 5 minutes to the end, let us know so we can switch.
Okay.
Because it won't beep or anything. You just have to watch the numbers. We're on a half-hour tape.
Half an
Okay?
hour. All right, we're up?
Ready, Alan?
Yeah.
Okay. Mary, can you first tell us your name and
Okay.
how it's spelled?
My name is Mary Marin. It used to be Mary Marino when I was, and then I married, and I'm now Mary Marino Sanchez. I was born in 1906. In 1912, I went to school here in APS. In 1819, I went to high school, Albuquerque High. And then there was no way of going back to Albuquerque High the following year, so I came to Harwood.
So why was there no way of going back to,
I beg your pardon?
why could you not go back to Albuquerque High?
Because we lived across the river. My sister decided to get married. My brother decided to take a job, and I was the youngest one of all this. So one day, Mr. Gonzalez, who was the principal of the school there, he said, "Are you going to school?" And I said, "No, I don't know. It seemed like I'm not going to be able to." Say, "Well, I'll go talk to your parents." His sister used to come to Harwood Girls School here. He said, "Why don't I'll go and talk to her parents and see if they can send her to Harwood." So in 1920, 21, 22, I believe, he talked to Mom and Dad and said, "Well, I understand Mary wants to go to school." He said, "Yes, but we cannot send her because there's no transportation." There was no transportation at all to Albuquerque High. So my Mom and Dad came and said, "Well, let's go and see where that school is." So we came down here to the old building. And we met Ms. Zilliff there, the principal. I guess she was the principal of school. And I met some of the teachers, Mrs. Sanderson, Mrs. Jackson. Mrs. Zilliff was very, very friendly and introduced herself. I introduced my parents as Nepomuceno Marinho and Julianita Montaño Marinho, my mother. My mother had 7 children. I was the youngest one of all, and the little brat. And so Mr. Gonzalez came over and asked my dad and my mom if I could come to Harwood. That was a good school. So they said, "Well, let's go and find out." So we came and we registered around that time. And then Ms. Zilliff told us about the rules and regulations. And then she told us about what we had to do, the responsibilities and the duties. And then after we registered, we went to Ms. Zilliff, gave us a tour throughout the school. My dad was very impressed. Then she told us about the duties that I had to be responsible for. So one week she might have to be helping in the dormitory. Another time maybe in the kitchen. We had to get up early and help for breakfast. But the duty that I enjoyed best, and it was when they gave me about 6 or 8 little girls, to take care of them, see that they got to their rooms, and see that they went for breakfast, and they sat me in a big table with my little children, which I loved them. And I enjoyed going to school here very, very much. First of all, because it was so well organized. And I guess I was prepared to go on through the 9th grade, 10th grade when I came here, 9th and 10th. And of course, they didn't have a graduation from here from 12th grade, so I went back to Albuquerque High. From Albuquerque High, I went to university. In 1926, I got my first teaching job in Valencia County.
And tell us about, and when did you retire from teaching?
I retired in 1969-70.
Do you feel that your time at Harwood, that your teachers, I think you were mentioning the principal, encouraged you to go on to college and be a teacher?
Well, yes, the teachers were all, I think I got a pretty good background for my education, that by the time I went to university, I was ready to participate in the programs over there to get my Bachelor of Science, which I did, and Bachelor of Arts. And then I got my master's degree too at the university. So I started teaching here in Albuquerque in 1933. In 1945, I became principal. All this year, I taught school here.
Oh, excuse me. What's your strongest memory of your time at Harwood?
Well, my memories are, it was the training that I got, either to become a housewife, to become an educator, or to give us the responsibilities, to look forward for a better life.
Were you a boarding student?
I was a boarding student from Monday until Friday. Friday evening, Monday, Dad will come and bring me in and pick me up on a Friday over the weekend. Income.
I can imagine that at that time, a lot of girls didn't go on to high school and higher education.
I know that there was a lot of them that graduated from me when I graduated from the 8th grade. It was because the parents did not want to let them go anywhere, any other schools, or because they just didn't have the means of paying for the school. But at that time, we only paid $12 a month to come to school here.
Tell me what it was like at your graduation.
You mean from high school or college?
From high school, the high school graduation here at Harwood.
Well, I didn't graduate from high. I went back to Albuquerque High.
Oh, for your last year?
Yes, because they didn't have graduation at that time.
What were the advantages of going to an all-girls school?
Well, I think it was, we didn't think, I thought, you mean all girls? I think it was a system, I guess, and that they shouldn't be together, the boys and girls. We had them in all boys, and we had the what was the name of the other school? The Menal, and also the Harwood Boys School. There was a Harwood Boys School.
Did you have events where dances or things like that where the girls could meet boys?
They allow us to have parties with them, but under very strict supervision. They come. Yes, I think we had very nice supervision.
And so you came to this building when it first opened, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
What was it like then?
Oh, we were so proud that we were in a new building. And I wish we had to stay longer, but I had to go on. In fact, by the time I got out of Harwood, I had enough hours or enough units to go to university. I only had to go one summer school. And so Mr. Milne, who was the superintendent at the time, he said, why don't you go on to finish your high school here, but go on to university too? And they allowed me to enroll at the university. I guess that it was because of the training that I had gotten here in education as well as otherwise.
We need to stop for a second. Her mic has,
I'll slip in.
minute.
That's all right. It's hot in here.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, let's go ahead and go.
Rolling? Okay. I was wondering if you could tell us about your room. What was your room when you were a student here at Harwood?
What was what?
What was your room? Where did you sleep?
Well,
And
we
what
slept
you
in a-
remember about the building?
We slept in the dorm. We are assigned to our different. We had a dormitory where everybody slept there, the girls.
Was that upstairs?
Yes.
Was it all one room or smaller?
No, it was a dormitory. I remember.
I understand that the girls who lived here had a lot more duties. They had to do a lot to help keep the school running,
They had what?
to do a lot of work to help keep the school running.
Oh yes. You mean like helping in the dorm and helping in the kitchen and so on and so forth?
Mm-hmm. How about, I've heard that one thing that seems very unique about Harwood was that it was a mix, racially, there was a mixture of students.
I think so, that there was a mixture of Spanish and Anglos, English-speaking people. And I don't remember of having the Indians, meeting any of the Indians, because at that time I started teaching in 1933, and I believe in 1938 is when they allowed the children from the pueblos to come to the public schools. But Susan was telling me that they had some Indian girls here. I don't remember if they, but I don't think there was anything, whether they were one or the other. We were all a family here. That's the way I felt.
It seems that a lot of people that went to school here kind of think of Harwood almost as home. Do you feel that way?
They have what?
Think of the Harwood Girls' School as a home.
Well, it was a home. I just felt at home when I first came. I didn't know what it was all about, but I think that everybody was so friendly. The staff, the people that lived here, the parents that we met, and I think it was more of a home, but a very good school.
How do you feel about Harwood Center, how it's changed today into the Arts Center?
Well, I was surprised when I first heard it, and I tell my goodness, I couldn't believe it, that it has had changed into an art center, but I understand you have another school for children. What's the name?
Escuela del Sol Montessori?
Escuela del Sol. Oh, that's nice. And that's mixed boys and girls?
Yes.
How many children do they have there?
2 campuses, there's about 80 children.
About what?
About 80.
80, that's nice. That's a nice school. It's a nice small school, you know, too, with it. If it's just as good training as the Harwood did, I certainly would send encourage some of my, if I had a little girl or a little boy, to go to school there. How much do they charge?
I'm not sure, actually.
Oh,
I think that they have a sliding scale so that
You don't-
different, levels of pay are
Uh-huh.
available.
oh yeah.
You mentioned that the war started, was that while you were in school here?
Oh yes, I remember that the war started in 1929. I wasn't here. I was in Albuquerque High. I was at the university at the time.
Oh, that you were in the university.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember any prominent events that happened during your time here at Harwood Girls School? Anything?
Well, I'll tell you, we had a good training good training socially, mentally, and physically. We used to, in religion, and here's where I learned how to read the Bible and encouraged myself in becoming a better Christian.
You must have had some special teachers.
Yes.
And did you make special friendships with other students and teachers that continued through your life?
Well, to a certain degree, I never did get to see them. I think, like Henrietta, she said she came here right after I came, and others, but I never did get in contact with other. But my nieces and my cousins came to Harwood. Anita came, Annie, and my brother's daughter came here after I left. So some of the family kept it up.
Suzanne, what else? Anything else you want to ask? Do you want to show any photographs to her? Well, we showed that one.
Photos from when she was here.
Help it but think of Harwood. When you asked me to come in and interview me, and I said, well, where do I start with all the goodies? Which was nice. I had a good personal achievement, good personal development in education, and certainly helped me to go on my career for 42 years in service.
What do you think would have happened if you hadn't been able to go to Harwood Girls School?
I probably got married and have a big family. I did get married and I had family, but I only had 2 daughters. The first one that died in 19, well, I lost her very young. But my daughter now is living, and she's the one in charge now.
It seems from the stories that we've heard about the Harwood Girls School that it was a very much a community. Can we help you with something there?
No, I have here. I have one here. It was a what?
There was very much of a community of people.
Well, I think so, because it came people that came from all over the state. You met people from the northern, the southern part, the eastern, the western. I think I remember that too. I met some girls, and especially when the ones that we lived here in Albuquerque.
I imagine there were a lot of girls that came from very remote places that didn't have a lot of other people around.
I imagine so, and they were very timid, but then after a while they've been here, they got over it, and I thought it was just a family affair. That's all there was to it, very friendly. I remember that the atmosphere, you never did, the only thing that I remember too, that once I got punished for speaking Spanish, we were not allowed to speak Spanish. And of course it was against the rules and regulations, so I got my punishment. But it was nice. I remember that.
We saw photographs from a little bit later times than when you were there of a lot of girls doing theatrical, putting on plays and dressing in costumes. Did you do any of that kind of theater?
I think, well, we had programs to that effect. You mean Christmas and I recall that. See, I was only 2 years, my 10th and my 11th, almost 11th.
Okay. I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Okay, I think we can turn the air on and cool you.
Rolling.
Breeze causing the show.
I don't want it, it's just kind of halfway cool, you know, I want it to be really hot. Just kidding. We're rolling?
Yeah.
We are rolling.
I forgot to bring my, when I graduated from university, my picture. I brought my dog.
Okay. Tell us about your plaque, Mary.
In 1992, yeah, as you may recall, New Mexico became 100 years old. And at that time, they had a big reception at the University of New Mexico. And I was one of the principals who
sorry.
was invited.
We thought we were ready.
Oh,
I turned
excuse me,
everything
we have a
off.
problem.
I picked these up to check and I heard, so I thought maybe it was there.
Huh.
Sorry, I think your microphone is turned off.
Silly. Yeah, how about this? This is for you superheroes.
We'll have to do it one more time.
Okay. I don't know whether
You,
I
still
say the
on?
same thing as.
It's okay. Go. Are you ready?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead and tell us about the plaque.
In 1992, as you recall, New Mexico became 100 years old. And they had a big reception at the University of New Mexico. And they decided to invite some of the educators from way back, the 20s, 30s, 40s, up until the present time, to be there. They had a very nice reception for us, and they gave me a plaque for the services that for 40 years or so that I spent with APS. And
Do you feel that you have carried what you learned at Harwood out and tried to give it to the children in the public schools here?
give it to you. You know that they wanted the tape that I had before, and they wanted that book, and then I'm sure they want to keep these.
Okay. Thank you. We'll stop.
Okay.
I forgot.
We're ready.
You ready?
Rolling.
Are we rolling?
Yeah.
Henrietta, can you start off by just telling me your name and how it's spelled to make sure we get it correct on the video?
Okay. I'm Henrietta Martinez C. de Baca. Capital C, small d-e, B-A-C-A, capital B-A-C-A.
How did you come to be at Harwood School?
My mother passed away, and my dad, in those days, we didn't have the latchkey or anything like that, and the man couldn't keep his kids unless he had someone to take care of them at home and see to it that they got to school. And he didn't, so there were 5 of us, and so we came to, first we went to the orphanage in Santa Fe, and then after a year there, then I told my dad I didn't want to be there anymore. I did not approve of the discipline that they, for my sister. Now, I never did anything. I was always scared. I was the oldest one. But my sister was a real tricky little girl. And so he then brought us, someone told him about Harwood here in Albuquerque. This was in Santa Fe, the orphanage. And we came to Harwood, and the superintendent here then was a lady called Ver Zilaf, B-E-R-R Zeliff. And she was a Pennsylvania Dutch missionary. And she said, sure, we'll take the 2 girls, myself and my sister. And I had 2 brothers. My 2 brothers went to the orphanage in St. Anthony's, which was here then. And my sister was too little. She was 2 years old. So she went with my dad's first cousin. And so that's how we started here. And then she became our guardian because we lived here year-round. We lived here during the school year. It was a boarding school then, but this was our home. So we stayed here in the winter and the summer.
How old were you?
I believe I was 14. It was in 1936. And my guardian was a very kind lady. In the summertime, she would allow my brothers to come because St. Anthony's was not far from here. And they would come and stay 2 weeks, or, well, a week at a time in the upstairs dorms. And it was nice for us because then we could play with our brothers, be with them.
What do you think, what is your strongest memory of the Harwood Girls' School?
My strongest memory, and I think it's a memory of just about everybody, is how clean it was. My guardian always said that cleanliness was next to godliness, and she insisted that this place was just shining all the time. And it was a lot of fun. I loved it. I liked everything that went on, and all the different things that they had for us. That we had a lot of music and plays, cantatas, and things like that.
Suzanne, were those the photographs of the girls in the costumes? Was that in Lily's?
It's in Lily's book, I'm not sure.
Yes, it was one of our, well, several of our cantatas, I guess they were. Chonita was one of them, where we were gypsies, gypsy dancers, and, well, there were a lot of them, because I spent...
Can I start you over? Can you tell me what a cantata was? And you did this a couple times a year?
Mm-hmm.
Start with the whole story.
We had a cantata once a year, and we had a Christmas program once a year, where we, well, it was always a religious play of some sort. And we had a glee club that most of us belonged to. It was a big group of girls. And we sang at different places, different churches here in Albuquerque. And we had a wonderful music teacher, Miss Iva Mae Caruth. And she lived long after my guardian died. She lived here in Albuquerque. And we had a music as part of our class, and I always remember that she always used to have half an hour of the music class was listening to classical music, and of course we didn't like that very well. We always thought, well, I wonder why, you know, we have to do this. But later on in life, I found out why. I love music, and I think all of us that went here do. And we had our practices after supper at night, and it was a real big production. The music teacher was really something else. She was very intense. Her hair would fly. She had beautiful hair in a bun, and it would fly all over. Everybody used to say, you can tell when we're having some production, Ms. Caruth looks like she's death warmed over. She was a very nice looking gal and always looked very nice. Her hair was beautiful. But she was intense, and she could tell who was off key from wherever she was. She'd just point at you and she'd say, get back on key.
down, I just realized I didn't put my microphone on.
Yeah, I realized that too.
You wanna cut for a second?
Just a second, yeah.
Hers just also said making noise after she raised her hands with Mr.
Oh.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry.
Want me to fix it?
Go ahead, you want to use
I forgot about it.
looked you needed it. Why don't you let Kathleen fix her mic?
Okay, I'll do that. Then I'll just,
It looks like it's on.
It's not like maybe the tape it went down.
it's okay, I think it was just the,
Maybe when the movement.
we just heard
Do
your
it
dress
afterwards?
working.
Well, I think I'll just keep my arms quiet.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Okay.
Okay. Can you think of the most important lesson you feel you learned at Harwood Girls' School?
Yeah, I think what the most important thing that I learned was discipline. We were, my guardian was a good disciplinarian, but she only directed you with her eyes. She never touched you. She never allowed any of the teachers to touch us. We were not, but we knew when we stepped out of line. They sent us to the office, and she would just talk to us. And I'd rather die than go in the office because, well, I loved her so much to begin with. I think we all did. We had so much respect for her. And the fact that she was so laid back, you know, she just never raised her voice. She just talked and looked at you. And that was the only punishment we ever had. But I remember one time someone took something, and I don't remember what it was because it must have been the first year I was here. And they sat us in this room here. We were all sitting down. And she said, "You will sit until somebody owns up to taking whatever it was." I don't remember. It must not have been very, in those days we didn't have very much. Maybe it was a brush or something, but hairbrush. But finally, after sitting about an hour or so, somebody lifted up her hand and said she had taken it. They said, "Go upstairs and get it." And she came back with it, and I believe it was a hairbrush. And she had to apologize to the girl and to all of us for having to sit here for an hour. I remember that. That was the only time I remember that happened. But she was, I don't know, the way she walked, the way she sat, very straight. You just knew that you just better not tangle with her because, well, I don't think she would have spanked you, but just made you feel bad because you were disobeying. And I think that I was an Air Force wife for 32 years. I learned to live all over the world with many kinds of people. And I think that, and of course the military then, they tell me it's not that way now, was very disciplined. And our husbands really had to toe the line. Then when we had children overseas, they better not get out of line because they send you home if they did. And so it taught me to be the disciplinarian in my family and my way of life. I was in one home. My husband was always gone. He was a fighter pilot. And so I had to take charge, and I knew how because I had been taught that. Otherwise, I don't know, it might have been a very dysfunctional family.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I think is really unique about what I've heard about Harwood is that you had an interesting mixture of racial groups amongst the girls and the teachers at the school. Was that the way it was when you were here, and what was that like?
Not so much when I was here. We didn't have any Indian girls, Native American. We didn't have any black girls when I was here. And we didn't have, the only teachers that I knew one lady was German, whether she was from the old country, I don't know, but everybody said she was German. And of course, World War II came on, and I think this emphasized it more. I don't know. But we dealt with girls from different backgrounds. And some came from very, very poor families. Some came, well, we were all poor. I mean, we didn't have very much, but we were happy people. And, but they were raised different, like in the country, like, I don't remember being on a farm or anything like that. And of course, then coming to Harwood and spending 6 years here, why I didn't, I was really always excited when I got to see cows and horses and things like that. And they had, again, in my life work, adult life, I had to deal with many kinds of cultures and many kinds of people, even in the Air Force, that some were very nice, others were very awful. And so it prepared you for that. And I liked being in a girls' school because you could sit any way you want to. You could go outside and turn somersaults. You didn't have to worry about boys. But I tell you what it did for me, I was scared to death of boys. When I went to the university, I just knew that they were going to be so smart. It took me 2 weeks to find out that that wasn't so. But I knew that they were going to be. My husband now went to the university with me, and I thought he was very intelligent. But here we had to attend to our classes, and we had to make good grades. I mean, we had our homework and our time for homework. And really, there was no excuse for us because we lived here. We had to do our homework at a certain time. We did it. And we lived with the teachers that taught us. And it was a shame if you didn't get a good grade because you had all the time to study. And so we all knew that. But I was really frightened. And my guardian told me, she says, now you know how young ladies sit, don't you? I said, yes, I do. She says, well, you're going to the university now. And she says, first she told me, she says, do you want to go? And I said, no. And then in August, she asked me again. She says, are you ready to go to the university? I said, yes, I am. And she says, well, we'll go up there and find you a job. And you can go, you can stay here. This is your home. And so we went to see the Dean of Women, whom I got to know very well because she was a very good friend of my guardian's. And she then took us to the Dean of Fine Arts, was Dean Dunbar, and he needed a secretary. So I became his secretary. $20 a month I got. And I thought that was really good because I had no way of, well, I used to fix hair for teachers, curl them. You know, we used to curl them and make spit curls and put them in curlers. And they used to give me a quarter, and that was how we earned money. But that was me because I had to stay here. This was my home. The other girls, when they went home, they had their mom and dad and brothers that were working and stuff. But
Can I ask you what it was like here? What was the building like when you lived here, and where was your room? Where did you live?
I lived in 2 dormitories. I think the pink dormitory was for the little bitty girls, the small girls. I lived in the yellow dormitory, and another dormitory. I don't know what color it was. It wasn't blue. Might have been white. And then in our senior year, we got to go upstairs. And there were 4 of us. we had 2 bunk beds. And this was very nice because it was very private. In the dormitory, it was a whole mess of us. I forget how many girls in the dormitory. And maybe about 20, because I think we were about 80 girls here, something like that. And then we had 100 and some teachers that did different things. We had a cook, we had
Did any of the
chaperones and stuff like that.
Did any of the world events that occurred during the time you happened to be in Harwood Girls' School impact you at the school?
Well, we were very excited when World War II came. And excited, I mean, because this was very different. I mean, we were at war and we really didn't understand what it meant. And sure got to know what it meant. My husband fought in 3 wars. But we talked a lot about it. History was one of my best subjects. I love history, still do. And they gave us a lot of input of what was happening. I myself didn't really, not until I got out did my brother go to war. He was 17. He fought with Patton's Third Army. And but we rolled bandages, and we gave blood, those that could. They never took my blood because I never weighed enough or something. I was always real skinny. And but we sure rolled a lot of bandages. And then we would help with at the USO Center with the donuts and things like that. They would let us go down. Especially in the summertime, my guardian was very community-minded. In fact, here at Harwood, we had outside community clubs, they called them, where kids that did not go to the school could come. And that's how we interacted with kids outside. But then we went to church all the time, too. I went to the Spanish Methodist Church every Sunday. And there I had a different group of kids that I palled around with. They didn't go to Harwood, but I saw them every Sunday. And we had youth group stuff, you know, at other churches. And
let's see. Here's a couple things that I wanted to get to. How did you feel when you heard the school closing in 1976?
oh, I was devastated. I just absolutely couldn't imagine why it was dissolving like that. I knew that in our work in Church Women United, in my work in the women's groups in United Methodist Women in our church, that a lot of churches that were not contributing to the church anymore, people. And so a lot of things had to be cut off and had to go in our own private budget, I know, in our church. And but I just absolutely, it was just such a mournful day when we came, and so many of us came on that day. But it was a very, very sad day for everybody. And especially when we saw the building, we thought, oh no, what have they done to our dining room, our beautiful, beautiful dining room, because that was one of the nicest things we had. We always had white tablecloths, not paper napkins, but cloth napkins. We were given Emily Post a little bit every time for supper, about 10 minutes worth my guardian would read what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to. The girls that waited on the tables had to wait from the left always. Wash our own clothes on the washboard. When I came, we didn't have washing machines. We had, well, maybe they had a washing machine for the tablecloths and stuff like that. But I didn't think I was poor because everybody was in the same boat. I wasn't any less than anybody else. The only thing was that I didn't have a home that I went to that I thought must be a wonderful thing to get to go home. And but later when I grew up and found out that so many dysfunctional homes, I thought, well, boy, I lucked out. I had
What did you do on holidays? Did you stay here with your sister and your guardian?
Yes, all the teachers stayed here, except in the summertime. They went home for vacation, but I think they sort of staggered their vacations because not all of them were gone at the same time. Now, my guardian also went to Pennsylvania, or her folks came over here. That was always fun when her sister would come, because her sister had a boy and a girl, and they lived here, well, for the week or two that they were here. And that was fun because we never had any boys except my brothers. But we had a lot of boys that would come around bicycling and stop and talk to us. And we'd talk back to them. And in those days, they didn't caution you not to talk to strangers or things like that because, well, we walked everywhere by ourselves. I mean, not by ourselves, with our teachers. And at night, coming back to school, we walked everywhere because we had no bus, no, if we went to a movie, we all went in a line. And then sometimes the movie ended when it was dark and we'd walk on 6th Street and cross over to 7th. But there was no crime like there is now. And I don't know, it was in the summertime, I remember when I was a senior, my guardian said, "Would you like to work?" I said, "Yes, I think I would, but doing what?" And she said, "Well, the superintendent of the high school, who was Mr. Glenn Ream, his wife is very sick. She had something like meningitis of some sort, but not the kind that's contagious." They had one daughter, Beverly, and she said she needs someone to go and cook for them. Now she says, "I know that you like to cook," because I did. In the summertime, I cooked, and I still do. And I said, "Oh, but I don't think I could do that for somebody else. I can do it for us here." And she says, "Oh yes, you can." She says, I'll write out the recipes for you, and I'll tell you what to have each day." I still have those recipes. She had such a beautiful handwriting. And so that's what I did in the summertime. So I got to know Mr. Glenn Ream, and he was the superintendent of the Albuquerque High, because it was the only high school we had, for years and years, and everybody just absolutely loved him so much. And everybody that went to Albuquerque High remembers. He was kind of like Mazilov, I think, because he used to, when the boys would not show up at one class or another, he knew exactly where they were. They were playing pool. So he'd go to the pool hall. I think we only had 2 here in Albuquerque. And he'd round them up and take them just back to school. No ifs, ands, or buts, or no. there wasn't any, I'm not going to go or something like that. They just went back. Or there was a theater that they went to too, also to the movies. And he would go in there and flush out all his kids that were missing from class.
How do you feel about what the Harwood Girls School has become today as an arts center?
I think it's real cool. It's, I like art very much. Whenever I always have liked to talk a lot, and I would talk in class, in my English class. I never liked grammar. And the teacher would send me outside, and she'd say, now you go and paint something. And first, you know, I'd do it with pencil, and then I'd take the paints. But I like painting very much. I took classes in that. And so I like the idea very much. I think there ought to be more art in the city. And I also like what you do. A lot of Harwood girls don't like it, but I like the little gardens because I'm a gardener. And I think that it makes, well, it just makes for the community to come together. And I think that, to me, that's what Harwood means, that we learn to live together. And that way somebody that doesn't have a little piece of soil to till can come over here and grow something. And I like the way you have done the trees around the school. Before it was very dismal. I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that everything dried up. We had very beautiful spirea all over the building. And in the springtime, it was just one mass of white flowers. And the grass was always so nice. The grass was so green. And we had a gardener named Mr. Torres. We all thought he was the greatest. And he kept everything just real ship-shape. And then all of a sudden it disappeared because of lack of water, lack of money, I guess. I think it was when Harwood was leased. I was on the board when it was leased to the Rio Grande Conference. I was on the board for my church. And we had I always want to call them Krishna, but they're not Krishna. It was another group of South Indian. What do they call them? Anyway, Sikhs, that's what it was. They had a school in the back in Hud Hall. And Hud Hall was a very favorite of ours because that was the teachers, where the teachers lived. And when they built it, and I remember when they built it. And it was a holy of holies. We were invited over there very occasionally. And there they had these kids in there going to school, and the place was all gouged up, the walls. And while I was on that board, I told the chair, I said, well, we have to do something about that. We have to get rid of these people somehow. We can't possibly have them deface. That building is a lot newer than this building. And finally, it was a big battle. I think we had to go to court or something. But they finally vacated the school. So I like the Montessori school. I'm very familiar with it. And I like the opportunities that you have so that we can come. I have been invited anyway, so I have come to the whatever you have that's outside with goodies, and the kids have different games and stuff like that. I like that. I think it's
Did
very
you come
nice.
to the reunion?
Yes.
Tell me about the reunion.
I thought it was real neat. And
Start out with the reunion was. How did you hear about the reunion? Did someone contact you, or were you already in contact with Harwood?
no, someone wrote me a letter, and I don't know who it was. I think it was that man that used to be here before. Jim? Richard, that's who it was. Yeah, we got to be real palsy because one day I said, I would like to have a Harwood girls reunion at Harwood. May I? He said, sure. And I knew what everybody was going to say. I say, bah, why did you take us there? It doesn't look like the Harwood we lived in. And sure enough, a lot of the girls. But then a lot of the girls said, well, if you were as old as Harwood, you'd look like we'd look now that we're old. You can't always stay the same. And and we had our reunion, so I got to know this Richard very well. He facilitated the tables, and we ate in there. We got lunch boxes from one of the delis, and we had a very good time. The girls liked coming. We had the best attendance we've ever had because they were coming back to Harwood. They didn't know what it was going to be like. And everybody was going every which way, going to the places where they stayed and see if it was the same. And of course it isn't. When you grow up, when you grow older, things are not the same. Things that you used to love to eat don't taste the same. You don't like them anymore. And so when Richard sent me the letter, I came, and I liked it very much. I liked everything that went on because I like gatherings like that. I think it's important to preserve what we have worked for, and that's why we get together every November and get as many Harwood girls together as we can. Just, if for no other reason than just to talk about old times. Because I think this is very therapeutic. And maybe your life has not been what you thought it was going to be, like the carefree life that we have led here at Harwood. So it's nice to go back. And the girls have all, some of them have passed away. But to me, a lot of them look the same. They have not changed very much. And I enjoy that. I liked the goodies you had. They were very good. I remember one time I ate some tabbouleh at one of the things that you had, and it was the most delicious tabbouleh. I decided that that was going to be my project. So I started making tabbouleh until my husband says, I can't stand this stuff anymore.
Henrietta, do you remember the Harwood song?
Yes. See if I can sing it. You better ask Lily that. She's the one that used to sing a lot of solos. I can't think of all the words. Harwood, we sing to you. And I think we had 3 verses. And then somebody decided that maybe they wanted to have another Harwood song. Well, the girls rejected that other song because the majority of us had been here during the first Harwood song. So when we get together, we don't sing the other. We have words to the other, but we sing the old. Here's to the gold and blue, I think it starts, because that was our colors were gold and blue. Our when we had the Glee Club, our gowns were blue, and then the tie that goes on in the front was gold, and it had HGS right here. It was very nice.
Do you think we need to go out and check and see if Lily is here?
Shall I check?
Yeah, why don't we, I have one more question I want to ask, but I just don't want to have a whole lot of people waiting in the hall, so do you want to just run out and just see?
Let's go see.
For a second.
Let's pause.
And
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
they.
Could you start over with that? Because I really like what you're saying there about, it would be a
Well,
shame.
I was so happy when you had the mayor here to present the historical marker, because I think that so many things that we have had are so old here in Albuquerque, but many things have been torn down. People not thinking that since we were a little town, that it wasn't very important, but they are important. And that I have always been very concerned with Albuquerque High, how they have left it there. And every time I get a chance and I go to Santa Fe, I, talk about that, because I'm an activist. I go to Santa Fe a lot when I don't like a bill or something ought to be done. And I thought it was so wonderful. And in that way, we preserve what so many people worked so hard to put for us, like Thomas Harwood and his wife, Emily. For them to come in the 1800s to the West, it was like us going as missionaries to they were missionaries, Methodist missionaries, as we would be to go to Africa, the Congo, and many places where missionaries go, that to start schools to educate people. And this was such a wonderful thing that they did, because New Mexico was very provincial, still is. And we had many little towns that did not have schools, maybe elementary schools. I went to a one-room school. The year after my mother died, I stayed with my aunt, and I lived in Cañon, that's going towards the Jemez Hot Springs. My dad was from Jemez Hot Springs. All his family lived there. And we went to this school, and all the grades were in one room. It was chaotic, to say the least, but we were there. And I always think of those teachers. They were Armenian. Mabu was her name, Sarah Mabu. I always remember her because she had such a funny name. It wasn't a Spanish name. And those missionaries that came, they just didn't know how many of us would be educated here. At first they didn't have, but up to the 10th grade. Then when they moved to this location, then they put in the other 2 grades to graduate from the 12th grade. And I think that to preserve this history, it's just really wonderful. I think we ought to preserve what our ancestors did. Well, they say, like in the big flap that there is now, that we have no ethics because of our president. But we are a very young country, but we feed the world. We defend the world. And so they say, well, they don't worry about ethics overseas, but that doesn't make it good for us, because we are the most important country right now, and we should have morals. And that's why I think that we ought preserve everything historical. And I lived in Spain for 5.5 years, and I got to go all of Europe. And they have such old stuff, and they don't think of tearing it down. They just keep it.
One thing that I get a sense of from learning about the history of the Harwood Girls' School and seeing what it's like today is that it was very much of a home and a family.
Yes, it was.
For those girls. And in some ways it's different, but there's a very strong community feeling here now.
Yes.
Do you feel that when you come
Yes,
here?
I do. As a matter of fact, I felt that very much. And it was a home. The girls came for a month and lived together. And at the end of the month, they went for the weekend home. Their parents came and got them, and they went home. Then they came back on Sunday night and started again another month. And that's exactly what it was. That's why I thought it was so much fun to. It was like having an extended family. All these girls you got to be such good friends. We had many things. I remember we had secret pals. I loved that. And we used to leave little things in the dining room for our secret pal before anybody came to the dining room. And then little things that we made ourselves, little notes, a stick of gum, something little, because I don't remember anybody having any money, and I don't remember us having a store nearby. Now later, they did. They could go to, there was a little store that they could go to, but not when I was here. But they did take us downtown shopping. We wanted to shop. We went to the 5 and 10, and
What was your graduation from Harwood Girls' School like?
oh, it was really nice. But there were only.
Start
let's
out
see.
with saying my graduation.
My graduation was on the 15th of May in 1940. And I was very excited to put my gown on. It was a black gown with a black hat, mortarboard. And there were only 11 of us. That was the senior class. And everybody was very sad because they would go away. I knew I was staying here because this was my home. And even though I thought that I didn't want to go to UNM, I knew I had to go maybe to commercial school. But I would be here. And then I taught here after going 1 year to the university, because during World War II, they gave us teaching certificates after a year because everybody was scattered all over. Women went to do war work in California. The men were all gone. And so I taught home economics here at Harwood for a year. And then I got married in 1942, and my guardian gave me away. She was all excited. She was a spinster, and she just didn't know what to do, ordering the flowers and hair. One of her girls was getting married. And so it was very exciting. And I lost the train of the first thing that you asked me.
I think we covered it. It was about your graduation, what it was
Oh, my
like.
graduation, yes, and that was fun. And we didn't have like now, I have 3 grandchildren. One is 25, the other one is 21, and the girl is 19. The first one has his degree in marketing, business, and the third one just accepted a $70,000 job in Chicago. He's barely 21 years old in July. In computer science, he is He has gone to study in Russia, so he's bilingual in Russian and Spanish. And when they graduated, it was entirely different. Now I tell my daughter it's so awful now. I mean, we do so much. I wonder if they really appreciate it. When we graduated, we didn't have, well, we had a nice dinner, but that was all. We didn't have, like they have the parties and all this and all that, and those really cost a lot, because I have had them for my grandchildren at my house. And my daughter graduated in Spain, and that wasn't so bad yet.
Let me stop for you for a second. Let's stop the tape and turn the air conditioning on before we all faint in here.
A lot of things life, but Harwood was there first, and then we came here. And it had only till the 8th grade. It came only to the 8th grade. I mean to the 10th grade. 10. And the 11th we had to go to high school. So Mizila would take us to high school and then come back and get us. And it was a very big change over there. They'd kill you almost coming down the stairs. And I used to hold the door, you know, so that to be polite. And she'd say, honey, don't hold the door, they'll kill you. So just keep going and hang on to whatever you can, because they were so rough, you know. But Harwood was always a very strict school. We all had whether everybody paid their tuition or whether they were paying it by working or something, they had jobs. And we all had our jobs, and then one month maybe they changed us to another job so that we'd know how to do everything in our own homes when we were there. And it was mostly from outside of town. They didn't have any high schools, and that was what Menal was made for, that purpose, for those outsiders to come there. And now it's so changed that it's just changed. And some came from Mexico, and they had already graduated from high school. I mean from the college, but they didn't know how to speak English. So they learned here. And one little joke about them is that on Sundays, the teachers used to have a dining room, and where they, you know, they ate dinner there. And we would have a bag lunch, you know. We'd sit out in the front, and the ice cream man would come. So we'd send the 2 girls from Mexico to get so many cones, and we'd say, how many do you want? You know, the group that always gathered. And they said, well, it was about 3 strawberries and 2 vanilla and maybe 3 chocolate. And so they'd go over there, and we'd give them the money, you know, and they'd say, we want 3 vanillas and 3 cocholades and strawberries, you know, 3 strawberries. And then we'd see that Mizila might come, so we'd kind of hurry up and move away from that area. But we did a lot of tricks. But I loved Harwood because they were strict, and they taught us what to use, how to dress, that they were, you know, not an orange this and a pink that. And if your slip was showing, they corrected us. And we had mothers, and on Saturday, if we had anything torn, we could go to her room and sew there, you know, and they would also tell us, we also had to, they gave them, the mothers, our report cards, so they knew how we were doing in school. And if it wasn't very good, we had little SWAT. She had a little belt that would slap us here up a little, and she says, you've got to improve. Don't let the next one be the same. And she'd give us a little punch and cookie, you know. But they really taught us to be anywhere, no matter what banquet we went to, we would know what fork to use. And if you were in doubt, watch the host, you know, and what they use. And so we knew all that, and how to iron the things properly, and we'd iron for the smaller kids. And we just did everything right, you know, that we could. And those that had $1, like I was telling them, they'd allow us to go shop at town, you know. And because we'd say what we wanted, more or less toothpaste or this and the other. And that $1 got us quite a bit at that time, you know, but it was hard to get the $1 too. I used to clean the music teacher's room for 25 cents and the bathroom that's between them, so that I could get a quarter to go to Menal, because it was a quarter to enter, you know, for their for
Place.
their
Place.
for their
The place.
yeah, it was their place or their, well, they were really operettas, you know, simple operettas, but they, well, then I got my quarter, so I didn't care how much I had to do, and we went to the operettas, and they dressed like girls, because there were no girls then at Harwood, and there were no boys here. So I dressed like a boy, and I usually had the main part of the boy part, you know. And they were over there with great big busts that they make for the girls, you know, and the short skirt, you know. It was cute and nice, but we got to go there, and they'd bring us back, you know. So I don't know, the food was beautiful and good, and the teachers were strict, and we learned. Even my baby sister came before she was ready for school because my mother had died, and she was in kindergarten with the rest of them. She could read by the time she got out of do everything that the other girls could do. So all of us were educated right, really. If we don't behave that way, it's our own fault. We were taught right, and we would go to church in town. The older people, that we'd go to, and the seniors would chosen for banquets when they had the Methodist church had a banquet. We'd be serving over there. We'd do a lot of tricks too that weren't very nice, but they weren't harmful or anything. It was just part of a joke, you know. And Lily can tell you more.
I'm on the naughty side.
She has too much energy.
Tell us some of the
Habla
tricks.
recio.
I enjoyed school. Not studying, but I passed. I was in love, I think, since I was in the 8th grade, I met my honey, so I was more in love than willing to learn.
We saw them when they came from high school, and they'd come across here, you know. So that's when we'd get to talk to him. And they were
my honey
brothers.
lived not too far from here, and he'd come for lunch, you know. He finished high school at 36. He worked at the Reading Music Company, so he'd come for lunch. So I knew when he was going to pass, I'd go sharpen my pencil. And then he'd pass by, and he'd be eating an apple. But do you think he'd share? No. So we'd throw rocks at him. And one time a friend of mine came to visit. She says, "Oh, I saw where you slept," because, you know, the different dormitories went by ages, you know. And then when you were a senior, you got to have a room. Well, she says, "You know, I saw where you slept." I said, "Oh, no, you didn't, because I was in the hall. I slept here." Because we used to giggle after the lights were off, you know. And I'd tell them jokes, and so they'd say, "She did it." "Yes, ma'am, I did." So I said, "That's where I slept, in the hall."
So they would put you out in the hall.
For an hour or two. But we had a lot of fun. We had good food. We really had good food. And at the beginning, some of the girls would say they'd write home and ask to send them food because they didn't give you enough. Well, it was because we were eating all day or what you wanted. But here they would see that you had your vegetable, your meat, whatever we needed. And they'd give us a brown slice and a white slice of bread. And oh, they didn't fill up. And pretty soon their bodies got used to eating the right things. They didn't even eat all they would give us, you know. But we had 3 good meals. And like she said, we had, for 6 weeks, we do different jobs. One time you did the halls, and then you worked in the cooking, and then you worked in the, to wash the dishes. They had this great big sinks, you know, a scraper, and we really did all that stuff.
The dorms too.
And then they had little kids from the 1st to the 3rd, I guess, and they had washing machines. We'd wash for them and iron for them, you know. And we would have like a period during the school, you know, that we do our laundry.
Saturday
Say
mostly.
Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, wash, iron, and whatever. Even to bathe, they gave us an hour during the week that you could just enjoy. And so then on Thursday and Friday, we'd do the things for the little girls. And they had this stove where you had the irons that you press with heat. And we did pretty good to iron like that. Now that we have all this, we don't want to iron, we want polyester. But we did all that, which was interesting, you know. And
How did you, you girls come to go to Harwood, your family was associated with the school? Can you start from the beginning and tell us how many
Yes, my older,
You know,
our older girls went
Our
early in the
oldest
old building.
sisters were at Harwood already, and well, I was about 7, 8, I guess. I was in the 2nd grade when I came, and
Nene was
yeah, she was
nothing,
little,
the crybaby, no? And
But there was a teacher, and my mother went to the Allison James. That was the Presbyterian girls' school. You know, Manal was for boys, and the Allison James in Santa Fe was for girls. Well, my mother went there. Well, there was one teacher that really liked her. So when she passed away, she gave my mother like a inheritance. And so she brought us over here. And we didn't know it till after we were grown up, because they made us come and wash
work
windows,
extra
put
to
curtains,
make
the beds before the other girls came. And here we thought we were paying, you know, which was good, we learned. But there had been some kind of like a scholarship for us that this lady had left my
And
mother.
she paid all our dues, and still we did all the ironing and everything. They didn't tell us here, Mizila didn't tell us.
But we learned, you know.
But we didn't hurt. I mean,
Because my sister, the oldest sister, had a friend that knew this lady that had given the money to my mother, you know. And she told her, you know, that how were we enjoying school without worrying about us. And she said, what? She said they go like in August, and we'd put the curtains, make the beds, see that the floors were clean, and we were really slaved. They would feed us at
before
noon,
they
you know.
started.
But we never knew that we could have had, that we had help.
That we had our tuition paid. But, well, we come from a long line of preachers.
And then it helped the school, so it wasn't really lost.
What do you remember about how did the school look like so that people can, when they come to the exhibit and they see the space now, I'm sure it was really different. In fact, Suzanne and I were wondering about the floors, if they were the same or not.
Well, some of the girls don't like it because this were polished. You could see your face on them. That was our job, on our hands and knees.
Everything was perfect, all the stairs too.
I mean, you've been doing a lot of, since I've been coming a lot of times, it's getting to look like the old times. But I mean,
It's very
think of
beautiful
all
in
the
here.
people that have been in here after the school was closed. You know, there were a lot of people.
And they
We
destroy by just use, you know, too, not that they're careless.
We wanted to come, they had like wrestling people that were here, you know, fighters of some kind. I said, why didn't they have that when we were here? And then they had
had
those,
the benches all
this
across.
religion, they wear that turban, you know, that white, and we'd come visit, and they were kind of, they didn't want us to see anything, but they were kind of messy. It's not to talk about them, but you have to give credit where credit is due, good or bad, you know.
How do you feel about the Harwood as an arts center today? How does it strike
From
you?
what I've seen, I love it. I do.
Oh, I call it holy ground. I really do.
We went upstairs where they had the ones with the copper or the brass or whatever made up, you know, sometime back I went. And it's nice that somebody's doing something that's worthwhile.
Or to let the
because-
building alone, you know, when things are alone, they wear out more than using them. But like our kids, I have one daughter, but she didn't go here, you know. I live on Manal and Candelaria on Eubank, and they had that little Aztec school there, you know, and my kids went to Sombra del Monte, and then we lived in the valley. They really started out at Stronghurst, you know, but they went to Monroe, and my oldest son graduated at Highland, but the other ones graduated at Sandia. But I mean, it was different than, they could go, the public schools were different than when we were young.
Mild
you know.
compared to now.
Let me stop you for a second. I want to ask a couple of individual
Questions.
The same question so that we know that we've got.
It wasn't the same period that we were in too either.
Right, I
you know?
can imagine that you had different experiences because you were here at different times.
Who are we asking first?
Rebecca?
And we're rolling already.
Okay. What is your strongest memory of Harwood Girls' School?
That we didn't feel afraid to be here, you know, when we're little even, and we missed our mother, but we learned a lot from history, you know, and even the teachers had their own room, and we remember little things that they did that we thought was funny, you know, but we didn't say anything, but we'd talk about it after we were out of the room. But everybody was really teaching us to be a good person and to love God and to do to others what others would want done. And I think we've all more or less, some have been a little different maybe, but not that they were mean or any different, but some of us are more sensitive, and we cry about little things, and that's one of me. I always have to have Kleenex nearby, because I see something hurting and I want to go help them fix their leg or something like that, and I've been that way. I used to have big eyes, you know, and my daddy used to call me cow eyes, you know, when I was little. And I said, he doesn't love me. And then we all had milk, and the boys couldn't drink coffee or anything. And Daddy would make me sit by him all the time. And then when Mama wasn't looking, he'd put 2 little teaspoons of coffee in my milk, you know. Not that I wanted it or anything, but I said, he must love me, I said, inside, you know. But in all these years, I've shrunk from little, I'm sensitive. And now I have my eyes all shrunk, but at 82, I still feel very strong. And I thank God for that, because we had the background from my grandfather, my father, one of my brothers. My husband was a preacher too. And you're taught the right things. We were taught by rote at the table, the Lord's Prayer and that, and we weren't in school yet. My mother would, and everybody that knew my mother said she was a saint. So many children, and the clothes was all ready for them, bigger girls to dress us on Sunday. The table was set, the meals were done, and then people would stay there to eat lunch, and we didn't know they were going to stay, so Mama says, if there's 3 people, the 3 oldest go upstairs and wait until later, and nobody will know that they weren't expected or something, you know. And that's what we'd do. And then he would go to another church in the afternoon. They had church at across the river. So then the boys had eaten what they were supposed to do. But we were taught to behave and stay at home when they were going to go. When we had company, we wouldn't go with them. But when they did, they'd stand us in rows by size. And we'd sing Jesus Bids Us Shine with a clear, pure light. And Mama would have the little candles for us. And so we were brought up right. And it was...
Your favorite subjects when you were in school, your favorite activities here at the girls?
I liked history a lot, and music, and English. And to this day, I don't have to worry about English, and it was hard, but we learned it. And we'd make poems and things too, we had to do. So I liked something like that. And now I like to hear like operas on KNME and those, and you don't even have to pay very much. We give some money sometimes toward it, but something, because we felt that just ordinary things were not enough for us, you know. We were brought up right, and we have to enjoy Grandma, you know, and tell her that we are doing the best we can.
Okay, now I'm going to switch the camera.
Now, Lily,
I want to ask you, tell me when
Lily's
you're
more
ready
exciting.
No.
Yeah, I think so, because she knows more little things.
Ready, Alan? Lily, what is your strongest memory of the Harwood Girls' School?
You know, I remember that they put God in our hearts. You know, we had devotions before we started school in the schoolrooms. We prayed before every meal, you know, and religion was high, you know. And most of the girls here were from Catholic homes, you know, and they didn't make a big issue of that because it was a Methodist school run by the Methodists, you know. But we were all treated alike. And as we got a little older, remember, once a month, they would let you go to the church of your choice. You would have one of the teachers or have somebody from your family take you, you know. So I like to go to the Presbyterian to go see my honey. But I mean, religion was top And I think that was their business, to teach us religion. Religion, not Methodist, not not any, but what you need in the world. If you're religious and you have God in your heart, you're willing to give, take, share, or whatever the need is needed.
Did you feel that the Harwood Girls School became a family for you?
Yes, we were very, very close. We were in plays, we were in the choruses, and you did a lot of things by grades, you know, or like you will see in the book, they had different clubs, the Kodak, I can't even name them right off right now, but we had the Kodak Club, the Cooking Club, whoever made the books, and we had clubs, and you could join, you know, and you learned a lot by just becoming members, and you would choose like president, secretary, and you know, you learned all that stuff. So when you went out in the world, you knew that you could do something in that life.
Basketball too, no? And
So
exercise.
You met your husband when you were a student here, is that correct?
Yes, I met him at my church, you know. We were
Start from the beginning.
Well, I met my husband, like, he came in 33, and we met them because he went to the Spanish Presbyterian Church there on Edith. And we just, he'd come see me here, and I'd go see him there. But I knew him, you know, and everybody knew that sometimes we couldn't invite them. We had to invite them in all boys. So I had a little spare boyfriend. I mean, you know, they didn't let you invite from the city. You had to be Manal or not at all. So they knew. I guess they wanted to know what background the fellows would have, you know. But after they knew him, they liked him. I had to take care of him.
And then when you got married, you didn't get married here, but you came?
No, we were engaged at Christmas time. And you know, before I left on my senior year, they gave me a shower. I don't remember, if you remember, they gave me like tablecloths, the silver, the dishes, and cooking stuff, you know, the egg beater, the whatever. So they gave me a shower, and I still have like a napkin and a silver setting and my platters, you know. And I tell my kids, but you know, they're not interested in things like that, the kids nowadays. And I have one granddaughter, and she has mine and her mother's, and now she, you know, she's more interested in stuff like that. But the kids, some of them aren't interested. Gosh, I'm a pack rat. I have everything. If they want something.
From Nix and on up, she's got books.
Okay, now I want him to do both of you again together so that you can both talk freely. Why don't we take a look at the photos?
Yeah.
Are you doing okay here?
Yeah, well, stop
Okay.
there, you're gonna start looking at it.
No, as long as you're pulled out and you're getting both.
Okay, got it. I'm not showing the photos.
Well,
That's okay,
Well,
we're
you-
going to cut to the photos in the edits.
Our sisters were the ones that told us that there's a family had moved in with 7 boys, and they had a baseball team of themselves, you know, and they called them Zenatrams, Martinez backwards, you know, the Zenatrams. And so that's what got us started. We wanted to get that weekend that we could go see which boys we wanted. And this is a funny thing. Lily would say, she teases, and she'd say, want to change? You know, the boyfriend's hot, Lily. And then at different times, you want to change? And then when my husband died, you know, we had to go behind the coffin with a thing and following the people that had the flag over because he was in the service. And she says, do you want to change? She tells me. Lily.
No, but you know that I graduated the 24th of May here, and we married the 12th of June. So the first thing I wanted to do after we got married, I said, we had made an appointment at the Miller studio, but somehow or other, the lady forgot. So I said, you know what? I want to go to Harwood and take my picture there. So we were out there on the lawn, you know, and I was so glad. That was one of my favorite places to go to. And it was a Sunday afternoon, and it was a real nice day. And instead of a reception, we had a picnic at the Roosevelt Park. So on our 50th, our daughter gave us a picnic, because that's what we had. On our 50th, she gave us a picnic, And now for the 60th, she had a dinner, and she had our kids, she had us go to Denver, and she sent for the kids to be there, and we didn't know it, that they were going to be there. So it really...
Let her come in now in my place.
They already took me.
You can cut for a
They did.
second.
When Mr. ¿Cómo se llamaba aquel?
El Warnside.
No, Wood. And Grandma made me go for a ride with him, and I didn't want to go.
I don't know if you are this, you know, because
There's some in the back too. So.
these are before her, after her time, because these are mine, and I know that
These
I
are
took
ours?
them. Mira la Lina.
There's a
There's a-
photographs in there from
Yes.
different theatrical things, and there's a wonderful
Yeah,
one
from
of you
the-
as a dancer. Tell us about the theatrical performances.
See, these were our operettas.
Operetta.
Laudilia and I. See, I was thin once.
She's okay.
Look at my honey. See, my honey came when I graduated.
They were brothers. Mine was younger than Luther.
Gee, this brings a lot of memories.
Tell us about the, we didn't
This
get
one
this on
here.
tape. I wanted to hear about the home economics
I'll push this one so I
class.
won't move. Lily, Chiscatter, get it.
Ma'am, sir,
We call her Chiscatter. She had a teacher in public school and it sounded, I don't know what, but she'd say Chiscatter. Mrs. Chiscatter was my teacher, and so we always called her Chiscatter.
see, this was Mela. You know, 60 years is a long time. A lot of things are important, but I remember that religion was, that it got in your heart, you know.
Did you learn much cooking? I saw the photo of you with the rolling pin.
I'm still learning, married 60 years, no. I'd rather scrub the floor than cook, dig a
Lucky
ditch. But these are really, really nice. See, Mr. Watley.
They were teasing her yesterday that her stove was still shiny bright and nothing.
I just dusted. I don't have to clean it. I only dust my stove. And I've been married 60 years. I've never cooked a turkey, baked a turkey, and I don't want to spoil my record. So my daughter comes, we go out, or we're invited, or we starve.
We always had time, and we'd say, we don't care what somebody else says, you know. We know each other, and sometimes we fight, but we just let anybody try to do something to one or the other. They all pet, you know.
How many sisters in your family came to the Harwood Girls School?
All
All
of
of
us,
them.
6.
The older ones started in the old Harwood, and we were real little yet, so we didn't
Look.
until that later on.
I was angry in this one. I never get angry. I get even, like they say.
What do you think you were angry about?
I must, this is right here, look. I have the same dress, so it must have been Sunday, my best dress.
Well, Lily, you did look like that.
But you know, that's what I got when, I had a teacher that liked me. She thought I was cute.
Yeah,
You know,
Miss
in
Hutt,
those days,
Miss Hutt.
in those days, they used to get that itch. They call it the 7-year itch. And we used to get it, remember? And we had a little medicine office, you know, a little office, and they would give us a little salve to put on us. So one day I was with my nightie up and putting this medicine, and this teacher came along and said, "Can I help you, honey?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." So we got friends, and you know, she bought my clothes all the time I was here. She was a real good teacher, and she was really good with me all those years. And then after she left before I graduated, but the day I graduated, she sent me a watch, and I got it that day. And she was a real good teacher. Even after, when I had my kids, she'd always get the layette, you know, for me. And then my last baby was born 42 years ago, and she sent a layette. And then about 6 months after she died, and I didn't know it, but her sister sent me a letter that she had died. And I felt so sad because I could have gone somehow, you know, even if I had. I told the Lord, do my blessings have to be little ones? I had 5 little ones. And, but you was so good to me. And so you got, they used to call them pets. I was her pet.
Or you're the teacher's, that teacher's pet.
Yeah, I was her pet.
Did you,
But
I know sometimes students kind of get a reputation in their class for being the one who always gets in trouble, or the quiet one who's
And the-
studious. What was Rebecca's reputation, and what was
The
Lily's
older
reputation?
girls would say they were we were their pets because they'd let us go get their towels for their showers, go do this and go do that, take this, you know, they'd use us. But we were glad that they cared. So, but they called them pets at the time.
But she was just real nice with me.
What kind of a student were you, Rebecca? Were you more quiet, or did you get into trouble, do pranks
No,
with the teachers?
I was quiet, but I could see what was going on. But I loved English, so I knew I wanted to stress on those things. And I ended up being the valedictorian both times. When I was in the 10th grade, graduated from there, I got a diploma. And when I went to the high school that one year, it was hard to get, because we were very shy. We'd go into the bathroom, you know, for our showers, and some of the girls would start undressing, and the boys going by the thing to another hall or to another schoolroom, you know, and it just, I just liked nicer things, and I graduated from the 12th grade too. And our little brother was there. He had been at my aunt's in Arizona, and they took his tonsils out. And he'd tell us, guess what, girls? He says, that Mana Monkey, it was Hermana Mage, you know, was our neighbor at Daddy's house. Mana Monkey died, she said real long, and we had to laugh because he said Mana Monkey, you know, and with a real thin little voice because they had just taken his tonsils out. And he was a good boy. And then he was, when he was learning to spell, my sister worked there at Menal too, her husband did. And he went with a little friend that was living at Menal too, their folks lived there. And they went to Longfellow, and on the way back, they saw the train coming. So they said, let's beat the train. And they, you know, they ran, and they felt all that hot thing on them, and they said, wow, we won though. And they told Matilda, and Matilda got very angry. They did it, my sister that lived there. If I ever catch you trying to beat the train, you're going to get punished, you know. And then the next day he had to go to town, and they were waiting for the bus, and they were kind of late. The bus was almost there, but he made a lot of noise, you know, to stop. And when he gets up on the step, he says, aren't you glad that we got here on TAM? And all the people in the bus laughed because he was trying to say time, you know. But he'd missed some of his words, but we were all ready to help with them in their book work. But we were just a strange family, a different family than most. And not better, but just we learned from little what was right. And even now, I have to tell my little grandchildren that God is with us, always taking care of us. And don't be afraid whenever people tell you that the cucuy is in the bedroom. So he didn't want to go sleep there because the kids would say the cucuy was there, I don't know. And he says, you know, God has a big notebook, and he's got pages, and here's your name and your brother's name, or yes and no. And every time you do a good deed, he puts a number and a line and a line till he's got 4 lines, and the 5th time he puts it like this, and there's 5 times. And he does the same thing with a black pencil, and when you do wrong, you have that. So they say, do you think mine is all black? They ask me, you know, a lot of times. Well, sometimes when you're with your brother, I think you're putting more black spots than you are white. But, you know, you go down to their level and talk with them. So I like to play with kids, too. I think I would like to have been a teacher instead. I got born in the schools in California, too, and came back in 79, and I've been here since.
How did you all feel when you heard that the Harwood Girls' School was closing?
Sad.
Oh, sad.
You know, because so many would not get the opportunities that we had.
Yes.
They had this church used to be on 6th and Gold, the Methodist church, you know, and then they moved here, so we had our last meeting there, you know, they had a meeting, and then we came over here for refreshments and to look at the building. And it was in 86, I guess, no, 80s. The day that they shot that Kennedy, that was the day the year that Harwood closed, you know. And, but it was so different, you know, and like now, those girls have a different thing of Harwood, the modern, and we're the old kind, you know. But still, the values and the lessons were not changed, you know.
That's when Miss Caruth took over after Miss
our superintendent was strict. She meant business. She said no, it was no.
They let kids from here come to things, you know, from town, and that was never done before when Miss Zila was here.
Day students, you know,
Day students, or else they would come and just, if they had a picnic or a party, they'd come and it was allowed. But that was not a very good thing, I don't think, that happened.
How do you feel about having the connection now with the Harwood community here, the reunion, and then seeing that this place is, it's not a school anymore, but there are children here, and the art center is
And the
here.
art center is
I
doing
like
something
it.
wonderful, I think.
And I appreciated that they have not taken the Harwood name off. I think that means something, you know. And then making it a historical site is really important. And
We
then
were
another
glad
thing,
that
you
you
know,
kept the name.
a lot of people do not realize that our school was built in an H, you know. It's in the form of an H for Harwood. And a lot of people said, I didn't know that. And I think that's the first thing we knew when we were here, that the building is built like an H, you know. Nothing was added. They added back there, but never over here, you know. And H, you know, and we had a lot of fun. We had baseball teams, we had all kind. The only thing when I was in the junior and senior, we couldn't play basketball because they said it was too hard on girls, strenuous. So we missed out on that. Then we graduated and they brought it back. But we used to be good batters. And
What did you? Do you appreciate that it was an all-girls school? Was it being all girls? Did that make it special for you?
I think it was good. I think.
We'd do a lot of little tricks, and sometimes the lady that was in the corner bedroom
But they
would
never
come and see what we were up to, that we were giggling, you know. Maybe we had made a sandwich and put it under the pillow, you know, to eat that later on, and we were tricky.
But they never told us boys
never
were
bad
bad,
things.
you know. You just didn't, you know. And you know,
And our boys are brought up the same way.
we were in the old-fashioned days where women were women, you know what I mean. We respected their privacy and stuff like that. Just because we were girls, we dressed carefully, undressed carefully, and we just didn't, you know. Maybe there were some brave ones, but
We lived at Martinez Town, and the boys at night, you know, the neighborhood boys would go there, and they had a big light in front of Dad's store.
oh, I forgot.
And the house was made like in the olden days.
Maybe I wrecked your thing.
It was in the territory, you know. It was in.
Hanky.
I have it in my
My
purse.
purse.
I have it in my yeah. But anyway.
I'll send you a little letter.
Could we move Henrietta in to sing with you? Suzanne said that you were singing the song beautifully out in the cafeteria, and we'd love to get that for
Yeah,
a
but
video.
we're trying to think
I
about
have-
because
I have
it's been
both
a long
songs. I'll
time. They
mail
made a
them to
new
her.
one, a new song after I left, and it's shorter. But it's a Stein song, you know, tune like the university has. But we used to say, how did it start?
The short one or
The long one.
See, we had that.
Here's to the Harwood School or something like that.
Here's to
Ta-da.
Harwood School. Develop our own pictures, and later on they had that copies. See, this was a club we had from your church.
I saw my sister.
Yeah,
She
that was,
so young.
we were the leaders.
Here's. Ta-da, ta-da.
See, the Kodak Club,
Where-
the
let's see
Quill
where the-
Club. You know, I sent this letter to this girl in the Quill Club in New York, I think it was. And she says, Oh, I was so glad to hear from you. And she sent me about 10 stamps. She says, here are stamps from my country. Send me some from yours.
That is something
And I
bad,
said,
no?
you mean to tell me you're a senior in high school and you don't know the name of
I
the
guess it's
48
further.
states? I said, we
It's
use the
towards
same
the further.
stamps,
Yeah.
so here are your stamps.
I
thought
think
that
the
was
operators
silly.
were here.
She didn't know, she wanted me to send her stamps from my country.
Here.
See,
And we
this
had
is,
nice
Becca,
operators not too long.
This is, see, 37, you were gone already.
You know, you still
Yeah,
have
but they're pictures from another time. See?
They're just the same. This is just
The
30,
operator.
or is that,
37, because I think that's a year Ella's graduated,
Yeah, because
37.
I graduated in 35.
I'm in one of those,
No,
I'm
we passed
married.
this.
See, I used to
She's
teach
in
her.
one of those Christmas one, huh?
See,
I even was an angel.
I was too, and I sang
That was a real
my
chore.
part and the
Heck
other
yeah.
angel's part, because I know it so well.
Find the
and
angel's
so
part.
nervous.
This is my book.
Es tuyo.
See,
See?
I loaned her all that stuff. And I have a lot more.
turn.
The only thing, that's why I'm in all the pictures, it was my book, my camera.
Well, your Christmas
my
thing
class.
isn't. Your
See,
Christmas
these are
isn't
the
here,
freshmen.
maybe.
Yeah, I was a freshman when
Look.
Lily was graduating.
Henry, that's you. You
Yeah,
wrote in my
that's
book.
me.
You say you love me. Do you still love me?
Yeah, I did.
It's hard.
No,
The camp
she
queen,
was
look.
a
Look.
firecracker.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, she's a firecracker.
She
Mira
used
la
No,
Mary
we already
Recon.
passed it, and there's not, you don't have
Here,
any
let-
of the operators
to-
there.
Let me,
No, because
I
see,
have books
I
on it.
have, we started that in 36, I think, La Jolla. They didn't have one when you were here.
Now, here's the words for the,
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is that other one. We want the real one.
oh, this is the later version, huh?
Yeah,
Out
No, we
of the
can sing
depths of
this
our
too.
love for you.
the other one is
Oh, don't you
more
want to put
Harwood.
our other song?
Oh, sure, we'd like to get them both.
It's a peppy
She's
one.
gonna send her a copy.
Words for, isn't it?
You're gonna send her a copy, you promised.
Yeah.
it's the one that the children sang, this one.
This one was written, one of the girls that graduated with me wrote this song. And then our music teacher wrote the music.
Which song would you like to sing?
The other one.
The other
Okay, well,
one.
then just put those words down.
No,
on the
next
table.
time.
This is her song. She's a little younger. But ours is
Yeah, I
peppy.
don't remember the big one.
You know the sign song, how peppy it is.
Poquito.
Here's the Harwood School, stand by her firm and true. Oh, go through all the years as they roll, in honor of our gold and blue. Then sing to all the happy hours, sing to the golden days. Sing to our dear alma mater, her honor will uphold always. To the work, to the play, to the youth that is happy in every land, to our health, to our joys, to our hope who is in all the land.